Welcome to History Addict, where we dive into the gripping and sometimes tragic stories that shaped American history. Today, we revisit June 25th, 1876, a day that echoes through time as one of the most devastating in American military history, the infamous Battle of the Little Bighorn. Under the direct command of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, 5 companies of the U.S. 7th Cavalry met their end in a devastating confrontation with the combined forces of the Lakota Sioux, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors. The battle, often called Custer's Last Stand, was not just a moment of military defeat. It was a stark symbol of the collision between two vastly different cultures, fighting for their land, freedom, and survival. Custer, confident in his approach, underestimated the strength and strategy of the Native American warriors, led by prominent figures like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. The clash was swift, brutal, and ultimately devastating for Custer and his men. According to many Native American accounts, including those of participants like White Bull and Wooden Leg, the aftermath of the battle was chilling. After the smoke cleared, young warriors and children began searching the bodies of the fallen soldiers. Among the items they discovered were square green paper bills, U.S. currency, that held no value in their culture. In an almost surreal twist, children later used these bills as makeshift saddle blankets for their toy horses, a stark reflection of how foreign the soldiers' world seemed to them. Silver coins, too, were found on the bodies and creatively repurposed by the Cheyenne, who fashioned the metal into buckles and ornaments. The battlefield was littered with relics of the soldiers' world, including bottles of whiskey found by warriors like Little Hawk and Bobtail Horse, adding to the grim tableau of loss. By June 27, 1876, when the U.S. cavalry finally arrived to recover their dead, the scene they encountered was nightmarish. Lieutenant Edward S. Godfrey painted a haunting picture of the landscape. Bodies pale as marble lay strewn across the field, dead horses rotting in the sun, and the once green grass stained red with blood and dusted with the region's ashy soil. Godfrey's description of the battlefield spoke to a sense of desolation and profound sorrow, a memory so bleak that it would haunt him for the rest of his life. Among the bodies was that of Captain Tom Custer, brother to the general. His remains were found near the top of a hill, brutally mutilated. His body had been pierced by arrows, one of which was so deeply embedded in his skull that it couldn't be removed. His head had been crushed, and he was almost entirely scalped, save for a small patch of hair at the nape of his neck. In contrast, George Armstrong Custer's body was left mostly undisturbed. He was found lying on his back, hands gently folded across his stomach, a pose eerily reminiscent of how he would rest during the long marches. Despite being shot twice, once in the temple and once near his heart, his body was left unscalped and largely untouched by his foes. The youngest of the Custer brothers, Boston, lay about 200 yards away, stripped of his clothing but still wearing his white cotton socks, though even these had the name tags carefully cut out. This deliberate act of removing name tags from clothing was found on many of the bodies, suggesting a chilling attention to detail by those who claimed the battlefield as their own. With few tools and limited resources, the soldiers worked tirelessly to bury their fallen comrades, often using nothing more than picks, axes, and spades. Each man was buried where he had fallen, a thin layer of earth offering scant protection against the elements and scavengers. Trumpeter Giuseppe Martini recalled one particularly grim discovery: a heap of bodies found in a deep ravine between Custer's position and the river. Among them, a sergeant entrusted with the soldiers' pay was found with $500 worth of torn paper money scattered around his body, a macabre reminder of the cost of the battle. The horror didn't end there. Some soldiers were found decapitated, with their heads later seen in Sioux camps, as reported by 7th Cavalry Scout George Herendeen. One particularly grotesque account described how a white man's head was tied with a lariat and dragged through the Sioux village until it was severed from the body. The fate of captured troopers was equally nightmarish. Survivor Jacob Adams recounted how some soldiers were lassoed off their horses, dragged into the village, and tied to trees where they were burned alive. From a distance, Benteen's division could only watch in helpless horror, unable to intervene in time to save their comrades. Of the 5 guidons, flags, carried by Custer's troops, only one was recovered immediately after the battle. This guidon was discovered under the body of Corporal John Foley, who, after failing to escape on horseback, took his own life rather than be captured. This flag, later known as the Culbertson Guidon, became a powerful symbol of the battle's grim finality. In 2010, it was sold at auction for an astounding $2.2 million, a reminder of the lasting historical impact of that fateful day. The Battle of the Little Bighorn, while a dark chapter in American history, also serves as a powerful reminder of the complexity and humanity of both sides involved. The bravery, loss, and grim reality of that day echo through time, showing us the brutal consequences of war and the relentless clash of cultures on the American frontier. Thank you for tuning in to History Addict. Be sure to subscribe and continue with us on this journey through the past. We'll see you in the next episode.